Hey everyone, it's Phil K from Nato Films. Welcome, thanks for tuning in. So it's Halloween today, the day I'm doing this, and I've had a few films sent to me that I decided to watch. New films, undiscovered talent, and in one of the films, beautifully shot, brilliant cinematography, camera work, editing, etc. When I was actually watching it though, I picked up on a few things of the scenes in themselves, and it caught my eye because I thought the production itself, I can't fault it. There was one thing within the production though that seemed to lack a bit of professionalism, if you will. So I thought I'd make a podcast about it today. So when it comes to makeup and props, if your characters don't have what most people would expect them to have, it's not going to look genuine, real, or authentic. And when you don't have genuine, real, or authentic looking actors with costumes on or props on screen, it's going to have a knock-on effect. It will. How do I know that? Because when I was watching this short film, as I say, it was very professional, can't fault that. It was the props and the costumes of one particular scene that caught my eye straight away, and I thought, it's the one thing that sort of it stands out like a sore thumb. You can't miss it. So when you do use props, and I'm going to give a horror film as an example for this because it's the only best example I can give. So if you're dealing with blood, there's a few things you need to ask yourself. How runny is the blood? You see a lot of horror films that use different types of blood. It comes in different textures, different colours, different shades, and I'm not saying obviously go out there and cut people open to find out, but do a few tests. So the blood can't be too light and it can't be too dark. It's got to match where you have cut on the body and the light in the room. Secondly, is it a slice? Is it meant to squirt? Is it meant to, spit out? Is it like just a and it's gone everywhere? You would need to speak more than likely to a visual effects person to understand this, because when they do a horror film, they do get a special effects person on board who will say, right, well, if you're going to cut them this way, it's going to land on the wall like this. A lot of people think you can just shot blood everywhere, or it'll look brilliant, blood everywhere. It's not always the case unless you're just going for a cheesy little tacky horror film. The more realistic your research is into how it should be, the more believable and hooked the audience will be. So I'll give a very quick example. In Scream, the opening sequence where Drew Barrymore is first stabbed in the chest, the moment she's on the floor, obviously it's right near her heart, the blood starts pumping out, but it's not squirting in the air. You can just see it's someone's pumping it out, but it looks real. And then obviously the killer puts his arms around her neck and that really goes for it, and that's when you see the blood around her neck, on her chest. It looks real because they have done the research and they've got a professional on board. They've got the budget there to do it, obviously, but the effort that has been put into it was fantastic. It looks real. You believe she is being stabbed, she is being killed. If you don't make it look believable in that sense, you've already lost. Because I have seen countless films where the blood just doesn't look right. It doesn't match what you would expect it to match. And with this film that I watched today, it was two policemen. They had no radios, no walkie-talkies. So if you are going to involve the police in your film, make sure the uniforms match how a policeman should. I'm not saying obviously go out and get real police officers. You can rent costumes out that look genuine enough and real enough. The costume itself though, we all know police have radios and batons and handcuffs, possibly some keys. They might have a really thick, stab-proof vest on. If you're going to make it look realistic, you've got to have that type of resource available to you. And again, that's down to the budget or a bit of compromise, or just improvise, do the best you can. When it comes to the makeup, as I say though, you've got to make sure it looks not tangible as such, but realistic in the sense that it keeps you watching it. I'm going to name a film, the film that really just does bore the hell out of me, The Terrifier. That's a perfect example of a film where they have gone crazy with. They've just thrown blood everywhere. Obviously it's just shock horror. It's that type of film. It's meant to be like that. It's meant to be corny and cheesy. But if that's not what your aim is for your final film, you've got to do your research. Same with bruises, swelling, cuts. When I hired the makeup artist for The Devil Comes Calling, we were very specific about the makeup, where the bruises should be, how far along they should be. I was advised by the makeup artist that, well, if they've just been attacked, the swelling would probably be within a matter of minutes. You need to have the swelling to reflect that. I was like, right, cool, let's do it. If there was any blood in the scene, where has it come from? Has it transferred appropriately? What do I mean by transferred? So let's say I cut myself in my head just there. I then would possibly touch it. My hand would get covered in a bit of blood. I would then touch something else. If you are going to use a scene with blood in it, where it's going to go from one thing to another, continuity, make sure you get that right. I think it's in Scream 3 when Gail Weathers rings Sydney's phone. Well, she believes it's Sydney's phone. Turns out to be a different phone in the closet. In that scene, when she goes to pick up the voice changer, in one shot her hands have got blood on them, and then the next shot they haven't, then they're back again and it's gone again. I didn't even notice it until someone pointed it out to me, but the moment you can see it's there, it ruins it. Obviously you keep watching the film, but it's like, oh, 2 different takes, you've got blood on one hand, there's no blood on the next shot, blood on that shot though, and then no blood on that shot. It's off-putting. It does spoil it in a way, because once you see it, you know it's there, and you know how you can sort of spot the view's different scene angles. Well, they make it even more obvious when you do that. So if you are going to do blood transfer in the scene, make sure it goes to the correct spots, because let's pretend, for example, I had blood mark on this side of my head, but I haven't touched that side of my head. Well, the audience are going to say, if they're watching a film, well, if he's cut his head on that side and he hasn't touched that side of his head, well, where the hell's the blood come from? And if it's not explained, people will start thinking, well, it's one of those things where with horror, the attention to detail has got to be immaculate. You've got to make sure it's precise and it's consistent. If you slice someone's neck open, for example, and you throw the blood on the ceiling to try and make it look cool, people are going to think, well, was the blood going on the ceiling? No, it would just drop down. And that's what I mean when I say do your research. Get a visual effects person, someone who deals with makeup and blood. Research, find out how it would fall or spray or drop, or if it would just run. The more genuine it looks, the more authentic, the more real, it will keep your audience hooked. I can guarantee that. Again, unless you're going for just some cheesy, corny rubbish like The Terrifier, then by all means play however you want to with it. But ultimately, let me ask you guys this: how many crime scenes on a film have you watched and you've thought, wow, it looks like a genuine real crime scene? That's because it's being prepared by professionals who know where things go. A lot of it comes down to your budget. If you haven't got the budget to do it with, obviously just do the best research you can, but don't just throw any rubbish on the walls thinking with your mates, oh yeah, it looks cool, that, doesn't it? Because professionals, if that's what you're aiming to get to, professional level, when professionals see your work, they'll say, well, we get you having a bit of fun, but that's not how blood would, be finished with, be toyed with. Thanks again for tuning in. Keep making horror films, guys, and take it easy.